Welcome viewers! Didn't have time for a full stream today, but I have really been enjoying this Arena Cube format and figured that for once in my life I would just record a draft video, take y'all through an Arena Cube queue, give a sense of how I've been looking at the cards so far. I find this a pretty interesting cube to look at. The vintage cube tends to be, I think, pretty well settled in many ways. Obviously it still does change, but everybody knows that the most busted cards are the most busted cards. People have, I think, a sense for where everything ranks. And in this iteration of the Arena Cube, it feels like I've been seeing a lot of pretty different opinions about what's good and what's not. Like, I feel like my chat has had, instincts that were very different from mine and very different from each other. When I watch other streamers, it seems like those streamers have different instincts. And on the whole, I feel like there's just like a lot to explore here. For example, I was thinking about like what the different two-color archetypes were, which colors I wanted to combine with each other, and I was initially thinking that black and white did not seem to fit very well together. And then right before this video, I drafted a black-white deck that just went very easy 7-0. It did have good card quality, but it also felt like the token synergies, which I thought had been mostly removed from the cube, were still there. And so, I don't know, that just kind of fired me up, made me want to try another video, try another draft, that is, record it, and see where we end up. Also, yeah, not going to bother with the green screen today. Y'all can just see out my window as the sun sets. And here we are, we're in. So currently prepping for the Arena Open. Very excited for this coming weekend. See what that's going to be like. And okay. So as far as cards that get me excited, this pack has two of them. They're both blue. I do think blue has the most cards in the cube that I feel like are just like, wow, this card is really good. I'm very excited to be playing this. In this case, the cards are Sea Double and Agent of Rafine. Agent of Rafine, a weird alchemy card, but it basically is just a Maze Mind Tome on a body. Very excitingly, it's a 1-drop, which means you can cast it and then instantly start drawing cards with it on turn 2, which makes it different from Maze Mind Tome or Reckoner Bankbuster. It also draws cards off your opponent's deck, but because it's cube, your opponent's deck has cards that, are probably about as good as your cards. If I didn't take a blue card here, you could also take Fabled Passage, which is a very good dual land. I'm not sure how I rank Agent of Rafine. I'm not sure if this is such a strong card that I just want to jam it over Fabled Passage, especially knowing that I'm going to be passing a Sea Double. I feel like I can think of like a bunch of drafters in my head and know that, okay, well, Cam would probably take Agent of Rafine, Ben Stark might take Fabled Passage, I don't know, just guessing at what people's instincts are. I have been drafting kind of a lot of blue in the queue. I might just take Fabled Passage here, just stay nice and open, not force myself. The thing about Agent of Rafine, it is a lot better if you can cast it on turn 1. It's not like a splashable great card. There are some cards in the cube, like Asika's Chariot, for example. Splashable, you don't need to cast it until turn 4 a lot of the time, so you can just kind of grab it and hope to use it later. Speaking of which, there's Asika's Chariot, which is one of the best cards in the cube, and I think is a card I feel a pretty strong pull to play. It is good on its own, as just a green card that you are often going to cast on turn 3 because you're ramped into it. Just like a lot of power and toughness, a lot of bodies, a lot of rectangles, as the folks on Lords of Limited would say. The cards that are maybe kind of close, Karn's a weird one. Very good card advantage, Planeswalker, has enough loyalty that's kind of hard to kill right away, but often feels like kind of an expensive divination. In my experience, unless you have a bunch of artifacts and can start generating creatures right away. That's kind of early to tell. The other card here is Reckoner Bankbuster. This is a card I'm pretty happy playing in basically any cube deck, maybe not certain hyper-aggressive decks, but because it can play good offense and good control, it's just like a great overall card. I still think that Chariot is like powerful enough that I am just going to jam the Chariot here. I think this is one of like the 10 best cards in the cube. Whereas Bankbuster is more like a top 50 type card, but I would see it as understandable if somebody just wanted to take the Bankbuster here instead and stay open with the Fabled Passage. No shame in that. Alright, so following up our Chariot, we have a pack that is... Alright, this pack has 5 lands in it, which means not a lot of spells to give us an exciting direction. Most of these spells are pretty bad. We've got Sky Strike Officer in a cube with very few soldiers, Crypt Breaker in a cube with very few zombies. Blood Chief's Thirst is okay removal. Fetch Ribbons is pretty good if you're already red and black, which we are not. In our case, I think it just comes down to one of these two dual lands. We already have a green card, and now we just have to pick, would we rather have a green-white dual land or a green-red dual land? There's also Deeproot Wayfinder, but I feel like you play this card. We do have Fabled Passage, which makes Wayfinder more exciting, but I think there's a good chance it could wheel. because a lot of people just don't like this card very much. And if you don't have Fatal Passage, it's not that exciting. It's just pretty easy to get blanked. It just kind of trades 1-for-1 removal that costs the same amount of mana it does. It's just not super exciting. I think I'd rather take one of the solid lands here. I'm going to angle Copperline Gorge over Razor Ridge Thicket. I think red on the whole goes a little better than white in this set with green cards. The green and white, as part of this is the gold cards. Like all the red, green, gold cards are kind of like big beatdown cards, like Blood Red Elf, for example. Whereas the white, green, gold cards are this weird mix of like, on the one hand, Voice of Resurgence, on the other hand, Mirari's Wake, and the colors can't really decide what they're going to do. Anyway, I like the red green monsters archetype a lot. I like the red green dual land. And yeah, I would feel pretty good about just taking Bloodbraid Elf. Old and Wild Oddity is not that impressive. Foundry Groundbreaker I think is pretty bad. Hope they take this card of the cube, but just kind of like a worse Quandrix Cultivator a lot of the time. Terror of the Peaks is just not that great as 5-drops go. Like compared to Glorybringer, Goldspan Dragon, Elder Gargroth even. It just kind of, it's great if you untap with it, but it's a 5 mana 4 toughness creature with no ward, no protection at all. Gonna take Bloodbraid Elf here. Like overall super solid effect. This is maybe the last format where it's actually playable and legal at the same time. Other picks I could see here, Dragon Skull Summit. If we had taken the green-white land, I might be interested in Sarah Paragon, which Fabled Passage does make better as well. The Dragon Skull Summit is interesting because I think that like red-black particularly offers you a lot of really good cards. So if you have like a red-green deck, flashing black into it can be reasonable. You might get to play like Crucius, for example, or Kolaghan's Command. But if we assume we're kind of in red-green monsters, which, we want to be kind of open to stuff, we might splash Bloodbraid Elf in a deck, we might just ignore these two cards if we get some kind of late signal. So here we've got Lovestruck Beast. We've also got everyone's favorite cube meme card, Oracle of the Alpha. I think this card is, I've heard wildly varying opinions on this, ranging from like actively bad to put 5 boxes into your deck because it just makes your deck more land heavy in the late game, to like pretty powerful. I think I'm on the pretty powerful side, but I do think you have to build around this card somewhat. Basically, I had it in a deck where I had like Narset to dig through my deck for the Ancestral Recalls and the Time Walks, and in general, it was just kind of like drawing and seeing a lot of cards, and that made it great. If you're just like playing it and hoping that the cards you draw off your deck will become better, not that exciting. Alright, so I took Lovestruck Beast there. It's a very good card. It's a 3 mana 5/5. It is not that hard to find other 1/1s in this format. Plays well on offense and defense, etc., etc. Just does all the things you want. This looks like Armored Scrap Forger. So Krenko is weird. Krenko might be like the worst card I lose to all the time. It's like very powerful if you can attack with it. There are ways to pump it in the cube, which make it just like terrifying. A lot of times you play it, it basically either does nothing or just like demolishes the person you're playing against. But I think the do nothing rate's still a little too high for me, for my tastes. I think if I had like a Rabbit Battery, I'd be very excited about this Krenko, for example. There are combos with this card. The Hero Scape Scrap Gorger, it's a very good 2-mana dork because it also has that graveyard removal utility. And it blocks well. There's also a Memory Deluge in the pack. It's a late Memory Deluge. Alright, so here we've got a couple of options that stand out. Asushi the Blazing Sky is kind of meh. It's just like pretty easy to bounce it or exile it. It's not like super broken if your opponent kills it. Even it's like good if your opponent kills it, but I just feel like it's kind of middling amongst the 4-drops. Voracious Hydra is interesting. Obviously, it's better in a ramp deck where you're like casting it for absurd amounts of mana, but even as a 4 mana 4/5 or a 5 mana 6/7 trample, that's like a pretty good card. I haven't had a chance to play with it. There's also Rootbound Crag. Hydra versus Crag is tricky. I might lean into Crag here. I just feel like green is very open. We're getting a ton of green cards. Hydra, I don't know. I had an instinct and I chose to do the opposite thing at the last minute because I'm like, let's actually test the Hydra and feel out how it is. Although, man, the more I think about it, the more I instantly have regret, chat, because I'm calling you chat, sorry, you're just viewers. Because I just realized this is like a miserable card to hit off Bloodbraid Elf. And given that I was like so close in that decision instinctively, the fact that this just is horrible to hit off Bloodbraid Elf probably should have affected my decision a little bit. Alright, now we've got Collected Defiance, double red. If I had taken the Rootbound Crag, I'd be more excited to play this because I think we'd be more cemented in green-red. But as is, I might just take Simian Simulacrum. As far as like green beatdown cards, though, it seems like a very good green beatdown card. And I like the resilience of the Unearth ability on it. It's also very good to hit off Bloodbraid Elf. It's like kind of does all the things you want. Okay, so C double wheeled. C double wheeling seems like kind of a signal. I don't really want to take Spikefield Hazard. Storm of the Festival can be good in this kind of deck. I wouldn't. Yeah, maybe I should take Storm of the Festival more highly. I'm not looking at 17 lands while I do this commentary because I think it might be a little distracting. I have found it to be underwhelming when my opponents have cast it. I think I want to take C double and remain open to be like green-blue ramp, especially with the Voracious Hydra in my pile here. Okay, we could just take Frost Titan. I think Asika out of the tree is pretty bad. It's like a cute 5-color meme, but like a 3-mana mana dork that doesn't attack well and doesn't pump other stuff like Rishkar. I don't even like Rishkar, and Asika is much worse. Stonecoil Serpent, another miserable hit off Bloodbraid Elf, and kind of covers a lot of the same territory as Voracious Hydra, as far as being a mana sink or an early card. I'm just going to take Frost Titan in case we end up green-blue. And here the Razor Ridge Thicket wheeled. Okay, glad we didn't start with that. We're not necessarily green-blue. We're still like quite open to be going in various directions. Spirebluff Canal is interesting though because it's a blue land that helps us splash Bloodbraid Elf. There's also Razor Ridge Thicket, but we have no white cards at the moment. So we'll just take the Canal. Cut to Ribbons would be interesting if we had any inclination for black mana, which we don't. Alright, so this is interesting. We have a very good blue counterspell in Kindred Denial. Our curve is very high if we take this card. And we're not really, we are looking much more like a green-red monsters deck than a ramp deck, so I could just take Play with Fire as well, which is early removal. I think we'd take Kindred Denial. I don't think it's going to be that hard to pick up red removal if we want it, but it was a tricky decision. Got Invasion of Mercadia. Ramunap Excavator is just like really hard to use. I don't think it's super playable. I'm going to take Invasion. Don't love it. Pillar of Flame I do like. It's nice to have some cheap removal. And it's Sushi Wield, so it looks like red is quite open. So while we do have 3 blue cards, and I think all these blue cards are decent, none of them are splashable at all. And I kind of... yeah, it feels like we maybe have an awkwardly high curve if we're doing the blue-green thing. Torrential Gear Hulk is cute. Obviously, it's very cute with C-double. But there is a Seasoned Pyromancer in the pack. Seasoned Pyromancer is one of the best red cards in the entire cube. There's a chance we can wheel Shatter Skull Smashing or one of these 2 red-green dual lands. And given how late red was going in that last pack, it feels like this draft is pulling me more into red. That late C-double was weird. I mean, C-double and Kindred Denial are both cards that people tend to misevaluate. I do think that people misevaluate a lot of the blue cards, which is part of the reason that blue is actually good. Seasoned Pyromancer is just so strong. It's such an incredible hit off Bloodbraid Elf, too. I think we go toward this. But it is tricky. I could easily see, like, I might be making a big mistake by leaving the blue cards on the table. As I said before, I think blue maybe has the overall highest average power level of cards in the queue. The red aggro decks and the white aggro decks look really good in the stats, and they might look really good when people draft them because those decks are good at beating up on people who have kind of bad unfocused decks. But once you get to a level, say day 2 of the Arena Open in the second draft, once you get to a level where everybody kind of knows how to draft, I think the aggro decks fall off, become more normal, and the like overwhelming raw power of a lot of the blue cards kind of wins. I'm going to take Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt's just like sickly efficient, incredibly powerful card, goes face, does everything you want. If Lightning Bolt were in the pack, it would be between Explore and Phyrexian Metamorph. At this point, I'd probably lean toward Explore. Metamorph is very exciting. It's a card that can like bail you out of games you have no business winning by just like copying some giant thing your opponent made. But I don't think it quite competes with the raw efficiency of Lightning Bolt. Speaking of raw efficiency, here we have Molten Impact, another card that I'm very excited by. If we were doing the blue-green ramp thing, we could take Settle the Wilds and feel pretty happy about that. But Molten Impact's just, I think, really, really good. Alchemy card, hard to evaluate in some cases, but basically against an aggro deck, it lets you line up, you know, a 2-for-1 very, very easily against them. You know, if we have a Lightning Bolt or a Pillar of Flame or something else to go with it. Against, even against like a control deck, it can be pretty useful to kill something early and then have some random chip damage you can throw at a Planeswalker. I just think Molten Impact's great. There's also a world where I guess we're Teamer. Like ignore Sushi here. No, Settle the Wilds might actually be good enough. I don't know. Settle the Wilds is very good, so is Molten Impact. I'm gonna lean toward Impact, but maybe this is wrong. One thing I don't have is a lot of aggressive early cards, and so if we are leaning more ramp right now, maybe I take Magma Opus. Like a very big departure from where I've been so far, but I can take Once Upon a Time. Once Upon a Time's good too. Yeah, it's a fine hit off Bloodbraid Elf. Good early, good late. Fixes your opening hands. Cool best of 3 card, because best of 3 you have more opening hands that need help than in best of 1. Magma Opus is really strong. I mean, if I wheel Gear Hulk the way that Sea Double and Frost Titan wheeled, then Magma Opus is like a really tempting thing to go into. We do have the red-blue dual land already. Yeah, Magma Opus is kind of a weird fit for the other stuff we're doing, but I maybe should just like make the upside play. I think it's close. Okay, Atali. Ooh, all right. This is an interesting pack. We got Atali Primal Conqueror, one of the best red-green, you know, one of the best like ramp targets period in the cube. Just very, very strong. 7 mana is achievable. And this card just like ends a lot of games when it comes down. We also got Sky Sovereign Consul Flagship, which is another one of the best cards in the entire cube. Like wins a lot of games by itself. Incredibly efficient value card. And there's a Stomping Ground. I don't think Stomping Ground, much as it's fun, is like, we have a red-green land probably wheeling to us. I don't really think we need to Stomping Ground that badly, so it comes down to Sky Sovereign versus Atali. Oh, God. I'm gonna go with Atali here. I think we're like leaning more in a ramp direction than an aggro direction at this point. Oof, and then we get this pack, which, if we were just red-green, is pretty rough. If we're living in a world where we're open to splashing blue, then I love Futurist Spell Thief. I mean, we could just take a Sekenzan and be fine with it, but I think Futurist Spell Thief is one of those blue cards that's like very easy to underrate. A lot of people think it only copies instants and sorceries, but it copies any spell, which means if you just pass the turn and have this card in your hand, it's just a 3/2 flash draw spell. You can kind of choose what spell it draws a lot of the time. I've been very impressed with Future Spell Thief so far. Eternal Wanderer also very good, still in the pack. Primal Might would be cool if we were doing the pure red-green monsters thing, but I don't think we need more removal at the moment. Llanowar Elves, okay. Good to see Llanowar Elves. There's also a Dismiss in the pack, so very good blue card. Obviously less important when we already have Sea Double and Kindred Denial, just like a lot of 4-mana instants to leave up. I'm going to take Llanowar Elves. At this point, we're still not entirely decided between red-green, like Temur Ramp, and red-green monsters, but I don't think Legion Warboss is very good at all. These tokens just get jump blocked so frequently, and it's just like a 2/2 for 3, where it's quite bad. Ozolith, there's just like no real synergy with this. It's not very good. Gonna take Sulphur Falls here, I think. Alright, so we've got some kind of stew going. Wow, okay. So we got Steam Vents for the Tricolor Mana Base special. We got Expressive Iteration. Expressive Iteration is less exciting when a lot of your cards are expensive, which is the case for us, but it's still a good card. Can I get away with not taking a dual land here? Try Expressive Iteration. I think Expressive Iteration is interesting. Also, not a great hit off Bloodbraid Elf, but an okay hit off Bloodbraid Elf. This is Explorer. At this point, we just gotta take our ramp where we can get it. And yeah, looking like Temur Ramp. We got Jetmir's Garden back. That's awesome. But yeah, lots of different choices we could have made at different points. I really wish I had the Rootbound Crag instead of the Voracious Hydra now. It's just like, I want to look at Voracious Hydra's numbers afterward and see if it's as kind of unimpressive as I suspect it is. Is there any world where we splash Zergo and Ojatai? I don't think so. We have a Jetmir's Garden. Actually, I'll take it. We're more likely to do something with this than we are to be like really happy about having Oseiju in our deck. Like not that hard to kill artifacts and enchantments in other ways. Stomping around there, and there are also like a lot of huge bomb artifacts and enchantments, I think. Sky Sovereign exists, but I don't know. I have not seen Oseiju used so far in the cube. It does not seem that impressive to me. Take Dromoka's Command here on the very slight chance we use it in our sideboard somehow. Okay, so we're like Temur monsters. We're trying to do some mix of a little bit of early pressure, a little bit of ramp into big stuff later. This pack has a lot of cards in our colors, but none of them are very good. I think Jacob Howkin's pretty bad. Like Merfolk Looter with a little bit of bonus text that does not do very much. Yeah, just not the kind of thing we're looking for. I think this kind of comes down to Fight with Fire versus Lightning Strike versus Chart a Course. I think we're doing okay as far as like card draw, card advantage stuff. I think I lean Fight with Fire. Fight with Fire is good at killing some of the bigger creatures that are hard to kill with her other burn spells. And the bonus 9 mana mode is actually very relevant. I have killed a few people already in the cube with this. So yeah, we'll go Fight with Fire. Like a lot of pretty unimpressive choices. Ooh, okay. Well, now we're cooking. This pack has a lot of good cards in our colors. Censor I'm not that impressed with. I think we're not going to be holding up like 2 mana that often in the early game when Censor is at its best. But there are like 4 or 5 cards here. I like all of them. There's some question of like which am I most likely to wheel. Volcanic Spite's a good burn spell. We already have Molten Impact, Lightning Bolt, and Fight with Fire. So I think like the 4th burn spell is not that exciting. The big question is, can I wheel Koglin Yudaro? Koglin Yudaro is amazing. Is an amazing card. It's one of the best cards in the red-green decks per... These are 17 land stats I remember. I think we just take Tireless Tracker, though. Tireless Tracker with a Fabled Passage in our deck and an Explorer just kind of goes off. Chrome Host Seed Shark's fun, but I think I like the card that just gets the instant value. Hopefully we can wheel Koglin Yudaro. My hope, if I knew we weren't going to wheel it, I would have taken that there. Because like 7/7 kill your creature is a very good deal for 6 mana, and the bonus mode is a lot more exciting than the Boseiju bonus mode, because instead of your opponent getting a card when you kill their thing, you get a card when you kill their thing. Alright, now we got Verdurous Gear Hulk in of Industry. I think Titan of Industry is kind of out. I feel like we just have enough 7 mana type spells here. Very inexpensive things. Gear Hulk's solid. There's some question of like how likely are we going to be able to like split the counters among creatures, but we've got stuff like Trap Gorger, Spell Thief, Pyromancer, Simulacrum. There's also Siege Gang Commander, but I kind of hate Siege Gang Commander. I think it's just like way too easy for it to die, and then the leftover goblins don't do anything. Okay, so this is the awkward part about red-green monsters, is there are a lot of cards that don't fit very well in the deck. We see Kumano Faces Kakazan light up the stage, and then like Faithless Looting, a card that does not fit very well in any deck in the cube. Faithless Looting is quite bad. Hellrider's pretty awkward just because we're not going to be super consistently attacking with a bunch of creatures. I think it's Workshop Warchief. Our curve is pretty high. I would like to at some point stop taking expensive cards. There's also a Voracious Great Shark. Actually, it might just be Great Shark. The question is like, how easily are we going to be able to cast double blue spells? I kind of think we can get away with it. Oh, my mouse is sorry, chat. Sorry, viewers, my mouse bugged out there. I was at that point actually trying to take the Great Shark, but bugged out there for a second. Not sure why that is. New battery. Anyway, this is between Exclude, Royal Eruption, Electrostatic Blast. God, I like Electrostatic Blast so much. It's hard to set up because often we're going to be tapping out when we cast spells in this deck. So maybe it's just Exclude. Exclude's a really powerful card. Take Exclude and be happy about it. Curve's still a little high. Would still love to hit something solid that costs less than 3 mana. Scavenging Ooze, not great. It's fine. There's also Elder Dragon War, which does kind of a similar, you know, the thing that this card does is it's not cheap, but it does punish decks that would otherwise be punishing you for not having cheap cards because you just kill a bunch of stuff. And I just don't think this is a great Scavenging Ooze format. You're not really trying, there's nothing you're like stopping with Scavenging Ooze that's all that exciting. I think Elder Dragon War, I think this card is meh, but fine, and at least it's a good sideboard card. Obviously, this is a best of 1 draft, but I'm trying to practice as though it were a best of 3 draft. I think the decks tend to be a little bit better in best of 1. Bone Crusher Giant's fantastic. That's an amazing card to round to the deck. It's like, does everything. It's cheap. It's 2 cheap spells in 1, which is, you know, really, really, really good for us. And nice, we see Incubation Druid, which I think I am going to take here. This card is fun. It's great with Verdurous Gear Hulk, for example. It's great with Simian Simulacrum. Those synergies really put it over the top for me. This is the card I want. You know, I think Werewolf Pack Leader can be okay in the pure red-green decks. I don't like it as much here. We're doing the Teamer thing. Retrofitter Foundry is a good card in general, but I still think that just like wanting cheap rampy cards kind of puts Incubation Druid over the top. Here we have Bushwhack versus Lightning Strike. I have not been impressed by Bushwhack. I feel like pure fight is just like, there's a lot of ways that goes wrong. Your opponent kills your creature, you just don't have any creatures big enough to stop your opponent's thing. I'm gonna take Lightning Strike. It just like works. And good. Koglin Yudaro Wield. Don't really like the 3 mana ramp sting. I think we stay away from Caravan here, but I love Koglin Yudaro. Like an absolute premium card. Mayor of Averbrook. There must be some kind of like fun werewolf flash thing you can do with this card, but it's been terrible every time I've seen it. I don't hate Duskwatch Recruiter though. This card actually, yeah, even more so than Mayor of Averbrook. I like Duskwatch Recruiter in a deck that is sometimes holding up counter spells. Maybe pick up a Royal Eruption for some anti-aggro stuff, a Timeless Witness, which I don't think fits this deck very well. I don't think it adds enough board presence for what it does. We don't have any loops or combos with it, but yeah, if we're up against a control deck, we need to sideboard out some stuff and just have a card that generates some value instead. Love me a Timeless Witness. All right, so now we're going to do what I like to do with draft decks. For those of you who are unfamiliar, I usually think you end up getting a better deck if you just don't think about cutting cards, but you think about building your deck like it's a sealed deck. Pretend that you've opened the sealed deck and then think, what am I going to make out of this? Because rather than like trying to figure out which cards are your weakest in a vacuum, I prefer figuring out which are our most powerful cards and how do we build around those powerful cards by filling in the other cards that are kind of more interchangeable. Yeah, one thing I immediately noticed here is we have very few blue cards. So in fact, I think I don't want to go pure red-green, but it's a possibility that's open to me. Like, we don't have to splash, and maybe we just don't want to. So great cards that we would always play: Lightning Bolt, Llanowar Elves, Asika's Chariot, Tireless Tracker, Lovestruck Beast, Incubation Druid, Explorer, Scrapgorger, Atali, Seasoned Pyromancer, Kogla and Yadaro, Bloodbraid Elf. Quick Bloodbraid Elf check. Looks like I'm pretty happy hitting almost all these cards. Good. Yeah, so, and then Molten Impact, also a standout card, as I was saying. So these are like the cards I'm like very excited to play. And now I'm thinking like, okay, when I look at this pile of cards, what are some things I notice? I guess what I should do is just like, what is the red-green deck like? If we just ignore blue completely. Which, like, I think our mana is not quite... We would definitely be making a sacrifice to add blue to the deck. Our mana is not so good that we can just completely ignore that. So if we just do red stuff, I mean... Pretty into Lightning Strike, pretty into Fight with Fire. Into Verdurous Gearhulk here. Yeah, I like this card a lot. It's a great follow-up to like Asika's Chariot. You can like make all the cats 4/4s and then crew the Chariot and just attack for 12. Yeah, like Gearhulk's at its best when you can reliably have a lot of bodies in the battlefield, so you don't have to take huge risks with the counters. And between Seasoned Pyromancer, Asika's Chariot, Lovestruck Beast, we're like in a pretty good position for that. Your opponent kills the Lovestruck Beast, leaves you a 1/1, and then you make the 1/1 into a 5/5 with Gearhulk. That's a good turn. We also get War Chief, Burn Spells, Dragon War, maybe it's Sushi. Yeah, the more I look at it, like the best blue cards, like I don't think we can play double blue in this deck consistently enough for me to want to take these cards. Sea Double's great, but like if we were playing blue, it would be for some combination of these 4 cards. I think Magma Opus is quite expensive. We don't have like Gearhulk stuff to cheat it out with. We don't have a lot of ramp. We have like 4 ramp cards. Just not that much. We want to be curving out. We don't want to have a Magma Opus sitting in our hand until like, you know, turn 7 and the game's already over at that point, or our opponent can counter it. So the cards I'm excited about actually including for blue are just Expressive Iteration. Great card draw spell. Our deck does not have a lot of card draw, but we do have some card selection, even in the red-green version. We've got Elder Dragon War, we've got potentially Invasion of Mercadia. Workshop War Chief can cycle in a pinch, that kind of thing. Then Future Spell Thief, generically a great card, but yeah, I think with only 2 blue lands, we're just not going to do the splash thing here. We're not going to do the splash thing. The cards I want to play in this deck are... Dragon War does a bunch of good things. I'm pretty happy with Elder Dragon War. Simian Simulacrum seems really good with the Incubation Druid. And just kind of in its own right, a powerful card. Yeah, despite the Bloodbraid Elf issue, I think we are down to Voracious Hydra. It seems good enough. Alright, so at this point now, knowing that we're only green or red, that makes it a little easier to like throw all the cards in and see what we want to cut at that point. Voracious Hydra, I think I want to count as at least a 4-drop in our curve. It's really more of a 5-drop. I think if you're playing a 2/3 that deals 2 to something, like not terribly exciting. It is nice. I think one thing about the Voracious Hydra that I do like here is it's nice to have one more trample creature that I can put counters from Simian Simulacrum on or Verger's Gear Hulk on, just like make those attacks more devastating when they happen. We've got Invasion of Arcadia for a little more card selection, Pilgrim Royal Eruption for a little more early damage, Workshop Warchief for a little bit of extra resilience. I really don't like Thragtusk that much in the cube, though, and this is kind of a worse Thragtusk because it can just get exiled. Not a huge fan of Warchief, at least in the main deck. Against, like, it is impressive when it works, but when it doesn't work, it's truly awful compared to something like Verger's Gear Hulk, where even if Gear Hulk can be dealt with by a random Shatter effect or even like a Loran, you get something. Workshop Warchief gets countered or hit with Thrax's Contempt or bounced. You just get nothing except for 3 life, and that's not very good. Alright, Invasion of Arcadia is a weird one. It's like, feels pretty costly in the cube to send 4 damage. Yeah, this card, like in Mom Limited, where this card was very good. It was partly good because this Chiron Flamerate card was very good. This card, you know, as far as like average spell in Mom Limited, this card did more than most of those spells. It was like a 4 to 5 mana level creature. In this cube, you know, this card is just like much worse than most of the spells people play, and so trading 4 damage to flip this thing over is not as exciting as it might be otherwise. I still like the Tormenting Voice effect. I think this card still makes it in, but just flagging that I'm not in love with the backside of this, and we might just, you know, be ignoring it more often than you'd expect. All right, so last card, we could do Royal Eruption, Pillar of Flame at Atsushi. Atsushi has kind of a similar problem to the Warchief, but it's less painful to waste 4 mana than 5. Yeah, I think between Impact, Lightning Strike, Lightning Bolt, I'm like pretty satisfied with the level of anti-aggro stuff I have. We've also got Scrap Gorger. We've just got like a bunch of chunky. We got Stomp, Lovestruck Beast. I think we're just like pretty well set up against the aggro decks. So I'd rather have something that is at least functional against control. I think we just go at Sushi for that. Cool. So I think we have our deck. We've got 6, 4, 7 mountains. That's 9 turn 1 green sources for Llanowar Elves. We do have more red than... Oh, we actually have our tide on red and green mana symbols. Given that, I'm going to give the tiebreaker to casting Llanowar Elves on. So we'll add a 7th Forest, cut to 10 red sources, 11 green sources, should be fine. A lot of double red in the deck, but we also have like Explorer and Scrap Gorger and Incubation Druid, which can all help us hit that. So yeah, we'll just go with this and pop into the games. Actually, let's put some sleeves on the deck because it's for a video. What sleeve would I like to use? Customize a little bit. Gonna have the emblem of our deck. Let's make it Bloodbraid Elf. Bloodbraid Elf's the one that put us onto this red-green thing early, so she can be on the sleeve. And then what's a good red-green monster sleeve here? We got Chandra, we got the Bolt sleeves, the classic. We got any sleeves that just scream Gruul? Ferocious Pup sleeve? Squirrel sleeve? Sweet sleeve? I have so many sleeves. Why do I have this many sleeves? Where do they all come from? Bloom, Scuffed. Let's go with... Oh, Minskin Boo sleeve. I don't like Minskin Boo very much as a card. Ferocious Pup sleeve it is. Woof woof. Let's get him. Alright. So red-green monsters. It's not the best red-green monsters deck I've ever had. We are missing a few of the cards that I think define the best red-green monsters decks. So those would be like Glorybringer and Goldspan Dragon are the ones that jump to mind. It's just like, you cast that on turn 4, you've probably devastated your opponent sufficiently that there's not going to be any real return. Yeah. And one Kogla is pretty good. I'd prefer to have both Koglas. I don't mind the one Kogla. And Yeah, it looks solid. I love that we have Voracious Hydra in hand, so we can't hit it off Bloodbraid Elf. That feels great. Also, if our opponent doesn't have a 2-mana play, we can maybe flip Recruiter and just cast Bloodbraid Elf on turn 3, which would be cool. Our opponent is playing a Karuga deck. That is, that's a bad idea. You shouldn't play Karuga in this cube. Ikoria limited, sure. Don't limit yourself to 3-mana spells only in the cube. You are going to die in exactly the way our opponent's about to die. And it may seem cocky of me to say that, but I'm like pretty sure they're screwed. The one awkward thing about casting Bloodbraid Elf here is that it is going to cast 2 spells, which means you flip the Recruiter back over and can't Gear Hulk on turn 4, but like, when that's the worst problem you have, you're in pretty good shape, let me tell you. Alright, Invasion of Arcadia, I think we dump Hydra or land. I have a 6-drop. I do kind of want to make my way up the curve. Hydra is going to be a 4-5 next turn. It's not incredible. One notable thing is I get to flip the invasion this turn if I want to. Kind of inefficient. I waste 2 damage, but may still be worth doing just to like set up something completely overwhelming. I think we dump Hydra. Cool. Like I'd much rather cast Atsushi next turn than Hydra. And now that I have Atsushi, which can attack down the invasion pretty well, do I? Sure, my tricky. I think I just hit my opponent. Like, this adds damage, but, like, the easiest way for our opponent to win is going to be, like, wrathing us. At which point, I'd rather just have them be a lower life total and have this thing ready to flip over later. Like, I think without actively wrathing me, they're going to lose. Yeah, their turn 3 play is Reclamation Sage, which is horrifying for them. I mean, it does block both of our creatures, to be fair. What I can do, though, is Simian Simulacrum so that it no longer blocks both of our creatures. And I think that versus Atsushi does have the benefit of guarding against a Wrath pretty well. So there's Wrath of God, there's Languish to think about. Simulacrum forces through some damage, but like, again, the easiest way for us to lose this game is just going to be getting Wrathed. I think I save Fabled Passage in case I draw Tireless Tracker rather than thinning a land out of my deck, since I don't mind drawing a 6th land anyway. And yeah, we're just gonna attack our opponent. You know, these creatures are never not going to be blocked by Reclamation Sage. I guess I could grow both of them with Gear Hulk later, but the way this works, you know, Sage trades for one thing. I play Atsushi. Gear Hulk still has 2 things to put counters on, which means we're like decently insulated against a removal spell. I have like a Vraska's Contempt for Atsushi or something. Oh no, it was Oracle of Moldiah. That's not very good for them. They are in a lot of trouble. Okay, so now we just get to go Gear Hulk. Put 3 counters on Atsushi, 1 on Bloodbraid Elf. It forces the opponent to chump the Bloodbraid Elf so they don't die, but makes it so Bloodbraid Elf doesn't trade. They go to 4. They just die. Okay. They knew they were drawing this, so if they didn't have Wrath in hand, they were going to be without hope. In summation, don't play Karuga. Play cheap spells. You need to be able to cast 2 spells in 1 turn. You need to be able to respond to a powerful 2-drop. Just don't play Karuga as your companion. You can play it in a normal deck. No companion. All right, hand looks very good. Lovestruck Beast with the, you know, curve out seems good. We have anti-aggro tools. We have a pretty good card against a control deck. Duskwatch Recruiter. And one thing our deck is not that good. We're not that good at turning on Lovestruck Beast if the token gets killed. We don't have a lot of other 1/1s. We do have Llanowar Elves. Trying to think if I have anything besides that. I think not. Oh, it's going to Valky, which means we probably just Lightning Strike the Valky. No big deal. Have not been impressed with this card in the cube. Dies really easily. Hard to get a lot of value off of stealing something with it. The 7 mana spell is just kind of expensive for what it does. it does throw off our curve a little bit here. But on the whole, the fact that it's so unimpressive in the late game is pretty bad. Right, so I think we just strike this down, get our damage in. Really see a reason to dram Invasion of Arcadia at the moment. There are some scary cards our opponents can play, but like most 3 toughness or less creatures, we have like other ways to handle, including say Lovestruck Beast. Or like Shield would really scare us, but Lightning Strike doesn't help that much with that. Urabrask's Forge. Okay, that card's good. Lovestruck Beast is going to handle this for a little while, I hope, but it's going to be good to find Koglin Yadaro. Oh, Bloodbraid Elf's delightful also. As a follow-up, we'll just jam Beast. Hit our opponent. Probably worst they are going to do this turn be like kill the Beast, hit me for 2. Then Bloodbraid Elf puts us in a pretty good place on tempo. Now they only have 3 mana. The options for like devastating things they have gone down. They kill the token, the Forge is just going to be useless for a while, so yeah, they grasp that, they take 2 damage, which is awesome for me. Forge is a good card, by the way. It's like occasionally embarrassing if your opponent can shatter or bounce it, but on the whole, I like it. All right, Koglin Yadaro mean we're not losing to Forge, but for now, let's just play Bloodbraid Elf. We're ahead on life, we're ahead on tempo. Jesus Christ, Bloodbraid Elf. Bloodbraid Elf is so good. All right. Kind of think oh, this is another source of 1/1s for Lovestruck Beast, worth remembering. Get rid of bad creature and land here. Slightly tough call, but like given that I'm get value out of using Coolio as a shatter, it's not as important for us to get to 6 here. So I'm okay against like a pretty grindy color pair, just making sure we have action against them. Although it is true that if they just play like a Shield Grid or something, then maybe I'll wish I had been able to use Koglin Yadaro earlier. Uh-oh, that's not Shieldred. And they did play a land this turn, so this isn't like a pretty bad expressive iteration. Yeah, the whole like all basics mana base with 3 colors. Oh god, Phyrexian Arena. No, opponent. That's not going to do it for you. This card's pretty bad. I have a hard time fathoming, especially with Grave Merchant of Asphodel not in the cube anymore, when this would ever be correct to do, but it's not now. Alright, so we could shatter something, but our life total is quite safe, and our opponent's life total is dwindling by the minute, so we're just going to jam Chariot. And opponent kind of forced to Wrath here. But even if they Wrath, we have literal Lightning Bolt in hand. If we draw land, we kill them with Koglin Yadaro. Many of the non-land draws we have would crew this Chariot. We also have Seasoned Pyromancer tokens coming out of the graveyard as another source of damage. Yeah. Okay, Noxious Gearhulk. That is a card that almost puts them back in the game. We do not have anything big enough for this to actually work, though. So opponent attacks us, we just shatter the Gearhulk and kill them. We actually just win by attacking with all of our creatures, but I feel like we might as well use Koglin Yadaro where we can for some style points. But we can also just cast Koglin Yadaro. Really, whatever. Cool Noxious Gearhulk. My Noxious Gearhulk is bigger. Yeah, so you can see here our opponent's got what I think is like a classically unfocused cube deck. They're 3 colors. We haven't seen any dual lands. Their mana might be fine, but it looks kind of awkward as far as we've seen. They did have a Xander's Lounge, I guess. They've got this mix of like control cards, Infernal Grasp, Noxious Gearhulk, Phyrexian Arena, with like Urabrask's Forge, which is only good if you're attacking a lot. And the overall picture is like they were trying to kind of defend and attack at the same time, and their cards weren't working together, whereas our cards are just focused on dealing a lot of damage. That is one thing you got to know in the cube. You got to have some plan your deck is executing on. Your plan cannot be play cards and win with the cards. You're a control deck, you're a tempo deck, you're a blink deck, you're an aggro deck, you're a monsters deck, but you got to have some overarching theme. This hand looks great. We're probably going to just be discarding a Tally to this Seasoned Pyromancer, but don't have to make that decision yet. Ooh. All right, opponent. Fixing our draws here. Our opponent played a Pain land first. The queues are looking weird these days, let me tell you. I don't remember if there's any stifle effect in the queue, but I won't have to think about it, so we're just going to crack the passage now. Going to be taking a lot of damage to cast their spells. I mean, this may have been their only green source, but you should still play the island first and see if you draw a forest, so you can use it. Alright, now we have the choice between killing their ramp and playing my own ramp. I think the choice is pretty clear. Bolt the bird. It's just like a great stomp target. I can curve straight into casting Bone Crusher Giant, which lets me defer the choice of what to discard with Seasoned Pyromancer. It's taking damage to cast card draw spells that don't affect the board. Bone Crusher Giant costs life to target. Looking ominous already. Alright. Okay, so we do have the option to just cast Seasoned Pyromancer to hit some land drops. Yeah, this and Bone Crusher both 4 power. Obviously, Bone Crusher's better at attacking through stuff, but I think it's kind of cool to go Seasoned Pyromancer. Like, I do want to hit land drops. At this point, I think a tally looks achievable. Armored Scrapgorger's not that exciting. It, like, takes a while to become an actual creature. Or Dragon War's not that exciting. Tricky. Yeah, I think we do. The Elder Dragon War's partly not exciting because it, Alright, opponent has Pact of Negation in their hand, it looks like. That was a weird pause. Let's get rid of Scrapgorger. And Elder Dragon War is, like, against blue, the token's really bad because there are just so many bounce effects in blue. I think we just ditch these two. Try to hit land drops. We didn't hit land drops, but the fact that these 2 cards were not lands makes me extra happy that I got them out of the way fast. Let's get the little baby Crisis. Cute. It's fine. And we hit, alright, little baby lands a bit unfortunate. So options here, we could bolt the Crisis attack for 4, and then cast Duskwatch Recruiter. We could also go Tracker Land, make a clue. We could also go Land, Bone Crusher. Interesting. So worst case scenario, they play something huge like an Elder Gargaroth next turn. That would be bad. Your Giant sets up the best against that one by just blocking well. But there's also this question of, like, how many better Lightning Bolt targets are we going to get than this 2/2 Crisis that's preventing 4 damage? I think the answer is not that many. Let's get rid of it. I have to pray our opponent doesn't have a Gargaroth or something. Uro would also be very good against us. This looks like the kind of deck that might have Uro in it. The bad thing about Gargaroth is that they can then Pact of Negation to back it up. On the other hand, our opponent making a 1/1 creature this turn is not very bad for us. We can tolerate that. Ouch. Alright. Game is still far from over. You know, Jugon Offensive Temple does some nice stuff. Opponent's got a lot of mana right now, but starting to see my way through to getting something done here. Probably just Chariot this turn. Good Lightning Strike, the 1/1 recast Recruiter. That just doesn't seem that exciting. Like, we might just be saving Lightning Strike for our opponent's face at this point, too. Is this going to draw the Pact of Negation from them? I would not mind if this drew perfect. Alright, so that's out of the way. We dealt with it. Means they're not going to do anything else good this turn, which means we probably get to hit them for 4 again. At some point, this land is going to become not a land anymore, which is very exciting for us. Okay, drew Explore. Not into that one right now. Let's just attack. Got no hasty stuff to think about. Okay, so we could... I think at this point we really are saving Lightning Strike for their face. They're about to have Remnant of the Rising Star, which can make really big stuff happen. So I could play... If I play Bone Crusher, they're just going to block it with whatever I have. I think I actually will Explore this turn. I'm going to start with Recruiter in case they have, like, Make Disappear. I think we do actually just want to be hitting land drops and or more burn spells. Okay, did hit the land drop, cool. I'm going to just play it. Not going to futz around with Tireless Tracker if I'm trying to hit a Tali. Alright, so here's the opponent's chance. They finally have all their mana untapped. They can make a big play. We've already seen Hydroid Krasis. And Primeval Titan? Nope, that one doesn't scare me. Opponent is now just dead to Lightning Strike. So Elder Gargaroth would have been bad. Uro would have been really bad. If it had been like Uro, we'd have to settle in for like possibly just losing. I think that the blue-green deck probably has the best inherent matchup against the red-green monsters deck of any deck. Because they just like go bigger than you do. But let's see, I'm trying to think if everyone could have anything to live. The only one blue spell that would matter would be... There's no one green instant that matters here. The only one blue spell that matters would be Spell Pierce, which we can play around. So we just get to do this. And kill them. Okay. Good stuff. Worth noting in the cube, there is 2 mana life gain at instant speed for green. It's Inscription of Abundance. Lost to that one. Almost lost to that one the other day. But yeah, just pure aggression, and the opponent, they were at least playing 2 colors. They had mana. They had, plays to make every turn, but it just didn't quite add up to enough. But yeah, if we ran that matchup back a bunch of times, we're certainly gonna lose plenty of the time if we're on the draw and our opponent jams a, prime time on turn 4 or something like that. But in the end, having that Waterlog Grove early, I think, cost them enough damage that Lightning Strike was lethal there. Otherwise, that might have been a much harder game. Okay, now we have made it into the Lutri bracket. Lutri the Spell Chaser is the best card in the cube. I think I've decided. I think it's better than Swords to Plowshares or any of the other stuff. It's just like fundamentally makes your deck different than any other cube deck because you got 8 cards in your hand at the beginning, and that's really, really, really good. Ooh. Okay, opponent's got that early, very painful land, which implies that they don't have a lot of other lands to choose from, so we're just going to bolt this Looter before it can help them draw lands. Goodbye, Jacob Hauken. And then we cast Dustwatch Recruiter. I mean, if our opponent doesn't have a play, then we just get to do the Bloodbraid Elf on turn 3 thing again. Looks like they have something. What is it? Repeal. Okay, well, I'm glad they're not using that on a dragon token. Okay. Run it back. Not really a good reason to Invasion of Arcadia when you can be playing like a creature that attacks them instead. Does die to Elder Dragon War, which is like one reason to maybe hold it back, but I don't think we're going to be using the 2 damage mode in Elder Dragon War, given the Bloodbraid Elf and the Recruiter. Oh, never mind, Recruiter flips. Cool. Okay, so maybe a little double spell Bloodbraid Elf Incubation Druid. Let's kick things off with Bloodbraid. Big money, no Voracious Hydra. That's a really good one. Now, I guess I get slightly punished for... Okay, opponent gets a future spell thief. As I said, this card's pretty good. They're going to get their own, Tireless Tracker now. And, trade my Bloodbraid. So basically it was like a Bloodbraid Elf there. Yeah, the Tireless Tracker is a slight punishment for, like, land order there. I don't know if there's any Force Spike effect to play around, so maybe that was a pure mistake. Oh, also this is a pure mistake. Alright, so I got distracted and didn't play my Incubation Druid while it cost 1 mana, so that could be really bad. Might stop me from casting, like, Koglin Yadaro next turn, for example. I hope not. Alright, opponent's got the tracker. Opponent's gonna, I guess, play a land. Hard Evidence. Okay, that's not a land. Okay, so I think this is gonna work out okay. Obviously, playing Coglian Yara this turn to kill their tracker would have been unbelievably good, but I'm still pretty happy with the sequence where I just get to attack here. Am I down to trade tracker for tracker? They missed a land drop. Now what I should have done was actually crack this clue pre-combat, because if I draw like Lightning Strike, then this is very easy. I think I'm down to trade tracker. They already have a clue in play, though. The fact that they already have a clue in play means that the extra clues they got off tracker are not so damaging for me. But yeah, I really should have cracked this first because it would have given me information, would have maybe drawn a removal spell. I'm playing a little sloppy right now. I'm going to try and focus and play it tighter. Draw Atsushi, so I really wish I had this Incubation Druid in play now, because getting just cast an Atsushi off of it would be, you know, quite potentially game-winning. Nevertheless, I like our position. We just have a lot of good stuff going on. Our opponent taking damage off their land is still awesome for us. Yeah, these lands are dangerous. You really don't... You should actively avoid playing these in decks that are not pretty aggressive. Okay. Well, could pull off all sorts of crazy stuff here. They've got 5 lands. They could do like Baral's Expertise would be pretty tricky, for example. First sloppy play, second sloppy play. Try to really think hard through next turn. Okay, opponent has played a 2-3. That's fine. They already played a land this turn. Alright, we draw Voracious Hydra. Alright, we got decisions to make here. So one thing we could... Obviously we have a 6-mana spell in our hand. We could just cast the 6-mana spell that's in our hand. If our opponent counters it, though, we do not get a lot out of the turn because we don't have very good attack. We would also play Voracious Hydra, which, similar thing, they could still just counter it or get rid of it in response to the fight or something, and it's not that great. On the whole, I'm really not liking the Elder Dragon War here against a blue deck. And with my hand, like, I'm not like flooding or anything here. So part of me just wants to go, like, start with Invasion of Mercadia. See if I hit a land for Tireless Tracker. If I hit a land for Tireless Tracker, then my attacks look much better. I'm attacking with a 5-4, potentially. Discard Elder Dragon War. Okay, even a tap land is pretty good here. Now I get to do this. Then I get to attack with both my creatures. They could block with Tracker and trade for my Tracker if they crack a clue, which is fine. And then I just play Atsushi afterwards, which I like a lot. Yeah, I'm into this. Like they're gonna go for the trade chump. Okay, so now I don't have to pump the tracker yet. We can just kind of let this happen. And yeah, so I made some progress in my game plan and still get to try and cast a threat, which is going to force them to choose between having a counterspell and cracking clues. Like a clue? Cool. Alright, so keeping an eye on what's our opponent's graveyard, because Torrential Gear Hulk exists as a card I'm thinking about now. But opponent's got to do something about Atsushi. They eventually have to do something about Tireless Tracker, and they're going to need to do something about Coquelin Yadaro. That's one way of thinking about Cube, actually, is just like, how many things can you do that force your opponent to do something about them? And if you're not doing things that force your opponent to do something, well, you better have a lot of things you can do when your opponent does it back to you. And then there are like a bunch of cards in the cube that I think are just not that great because they don't force your opponent to do something. Like Deeproot Wayfinder, for example, your opponent does have to block it or kill it or something, but like often it doesn't make your opponent do anything because it's just kind of sitting there and your opponent's just like playing out their game and invalidating it just by having the creatures they'd be playing anyway. Jacob Howkins, another great example of like, I don't think this card's very good because you play it, And your opponent can do something if they want to. They can kill it very efficiently. But they don't have to do anything. They can just kind of sit on it. Our opponent makes a absolutely bananas attack with Tireless Tracker. Don't know what this is about, but I'm not going to block. That just... They may have realized they were just probably going to be dead no matter what. Let's cast... We got... I guess they're not literally dead, to be fair. So we crack the clue. If we had a land off of cracking this, we win. Oh wait, we don't know because we have Incubation Grid. Okay, automatic then. Crack the thing. Unless they have Pact Negation. If they have Pact Negation, we should have the tempo to win anyway. Just cast Voracious Hydra. Yes, the tracker attack lost them the game earlier than they would have lost, but yeah, they were in a tough spot. And again, the marginal damage from the Fiery Islet really added up there. Made things much harder for them despite our punts. Alright, clean 4-0 with red-green monsters, just like churning through stuff pretty efficiently. Okay, nice focus deck so far. We've been, haven't had a mulligan or anything. Our hands have played out pretty well. We've had some opponents who didn't do much. All right. Gonna keep this. This hand's a little riskier. We do need a third land. We have an Atali sitting in our hand that doesn't do a lot. It's really nice that we do have, like, Invasion of Mercadia to be a good draw. Armored Scrapgorger would be a very good draw. Molten Impact's pretty nice. Just like, if our opponent's like mono-white aggro, this does something against them. Stops us from being run over. Not going to stomp them in the face. I don't think that's worth it when we are sitting on 2 lands. We might just need to use all the cheap spells to actually deal with their stuff. Alright, so I was just talking about how we had mulligan in our hands that played out pretty well. This is a good example of a pretty awkward hand, where this like 7-drop is punishing us, even though I think it's like pretty viable to play in our deck. Alright, everyone's not going to list with the Recruiter, but they do just play a 3-mana 3/3 that doesn't do very much. Classic Rishkar. This is like a 3-mana spell that your opponent really doesn't have to worry about that much unless they want to. Drawing the land is a little interesting. In theory, we could go like Solemn Simulacrum attack for 4, but I don't really see a great reason to let our opponent have a 5-drop right now. I think we just Molten Impact the Rishkar. We have an extra damage floating in case our opponent plays, a 3 toughness creature for us to stomp. Also means that Fight with Fire can kill something like a Greater Gargaroth. Good. Okay, Toski, Bearer of Secrets. That card is not very good. And do not mind that it has been cast here. I think this is a good turn to just go Tracker. And start generating clues. Yeah. Toski is a card that can be good against some decks, but it, like, by itself, it does very little. It gets blocked very easily. If you're hitting your opponent with a bunch of creatures, you're probably winning the game anyway. And if you're hitting your opponent with like 1 creature and drawing some cards off it, it just, you need to draw a couple of cards before spending 4 mana on Toski was actually worthwhile. Okay, so we've got Molten Impact, 1 damage floating. I do want to kill Myrel. What I should start by doing is cracking this clue. Okay, so I draw a Lightning Strike, because that would be a great way to kill a Myrel. Nope, but we are getting closer to Atali, which is also cool. So yeah, I'm leaving Duskwatch Recruiter back to block anyway. I mean, I could attack with Tracker, but they're clearly not going to block with Myrel, so that doesn't matter that much. Alright, so it hurts a little bit to fight the Fire of the Myrel because it means we're more vulnerable to something huge like a Kogla coming down. But the fact that I am making steady progress toward Atali makes me feel less bad about that. And Myrel attacking with a Toski out feels kind of annoying, so we are just going to get rid of her. For 4. Worst case scenario, opponent goes like land, Kogla, kill Duskwatch, draw a card. That would be difficult to come back from, but not impossible. Tireless Tracker is a very good card. It can get to a size where it blocks Kogla by itself. Verdurous Gearhulk on Toski, also kind of scary, but not terrible. Toski still is not going to easily get to a size where it's hard to block. We take this, they get their card. I mean, that was a good play, don't get me wrong. It's like, this Gearhulk's strong. That would have been a nice turn to draw Kogla and just shatter it. We did not manage that, but what I can do is just go land Chariot, which is big enough to block Toski, as is the tracker. And then I get to hold up Stomp or Crack a Clue. I don't think I'm going to draw a 4-mana spell that's better than Chariot here, so I'm pretty comfortable just doing this. And passing. And then, yeah, opponent might have bigger stuff than us, but Atali tends to win most of the battles of bigness. Okay, Maul the Skyclaves is very scary. Putting on Toski, which is less scary, so they're not going to kill me as hard as this Gearhulk was going to kill me. I do appreciate that. Alright, they are coming with Gearhulk, so I guess we're going to be crewing the Chariot. And angling for a block on the Gearhulk. The question is... Let's see, if they have like Valorous Stance or something, we do this. I think we just triple block the Gearhulk to make sure it dies, even through something like a Valorous Stance, and doesn't hit us to draw any cards. If we draw land for Atali, we're still in great shape because our life total is under threat. If we draw a Shatter effect, like the basically Kogla and Yudaro, all goes down. I'm very happy. Alright, looks like the opponent's going to try and take out Chariot. Sure. Okay, Gearhulk down. They have some extra cards, but they spent a lot of mana to get those cards. They have Menagerie Curator. This card's very good. But, so I'm not going to stomp that, but I do get to draw my card, look for my 7th land. Copperline Gorge. Copperline Gorge doing Copperline Gorge things here. Nevertheless, I think I like our position. Still, we get to go Gorge, Clue. We have a Atali for next turn. Our opponent, we're going to have a flying blocker for the Toski. We get to do just an all-out attack seems right here. I assume our opponent's going to block one of the 2/2s with the Menagerie Curator. They just block Tracker. All right. Not bad, not bad. Sure, so no great reason. I think, again, we have no real good reason to crack the clue. We have a perfect good 4-mana play and might benefit from leaving up Stomp. Let's go with Sushi. Pass. I think if Itsushi dies right now, I'm going to want Treasures, just because we're really going to want to play Atali next turn. Not the cards we get off of Itsushi, but we'll see if anything happens to make you change that decision. We see here another bad example of bad feature of Toski. Like, it has drawn cards this turn, but now our opponent wants to be blocking, and this card cannot block. It has to keep attacking. Okay. It was Day of Judgment with the Toski out. I mean, that's a good combo. That's definitely a good combo. Yeah, I guess we take it. I'm going to draw a card now. I don't think I'm going to want to stomp something this turn, and this might help me figure things out. Nope. All right, Itsushi goes down. We're definitely taking Treasures still. But okay, now there are angles where our opponent could actually beat us. Our whole board is gone. Toski plus... Okay. Maybe the situation where Toski is playable is when you have like a bunch of Day of Judgment effects. Nevertheless, we are going to play Atali. Oh, we also have Kogla and Yudaro to smash the Maul. That's cool. Huh. Okay, is it ever the play just to Kogla and Yudaro this turn and smash the Maul? That's a question. Oh, do we have our opponent dead? Our opponent's very close to dead. Kogla and Yudaro's 7 power haste. Trample hits them for 7, and then we have 2 extra damage from this, 2 extra damage from this, but neither of those quite adds up. If I play a Tali and I don't hit anything to deal with Toski, there's some chance I just lose. They can pump this a little bit, it could just kill me. So like shattering the thing there feels pretty reasonable. Problem is I'm still being attacked by a 3/3 Toski at that point, and neither of my creatures can block it very well. Unlikely Atali hits. I guess if I hit like a card draw spell off of Atali, I could hit like. I'm gonna go for Atali here. Interesting spot. Like the Day of Judgment might have gotten us. If I can hit one thing that draws a card. Or I could hit Vorinclex Monstrous Raider. That's kind of cool. Alright, well. Vorinclex, I guess. Voracious Hydra. X equals 0 on Voracious Hydra is very awkward. I have the option to fight Toski, which I don't think is an option that's worth taking. We don't have any like death triggers or anything. Yeah, our opponent is once again... Oh wait, now, okay. Thanks to Vorinclex, they now die to Simian Simulacrum. Glad I took the time to like look at all the cards that I had. Now we can make this a 10-10. And good. Alright, our opponent goes down. Yes, the thing about Atali, it's like, you don't know how you're going to win the game after doing this, but like, you'll probably find some way to win after doing it. Excuse me. But again, we had the option to just like hit an Explorer off our opponent's deck or hit like Invasion of Arcadia off of ours, draw the land, use the treasures to shatter them all, and then our opponent has us, you're much less threatened at that point. Still, Day of Judgment, I don't like Day of Judgment in the queue very much. I think that like, it's pretty easy for people to play around Wraths, it's pretty easy for people to like, deal with Wraths with counter magic or, you know, Invasion of Gobekhan or something like that, Selfless Spirit. And like, I don't know, I found it seems hard to maneuver games into positions where your Wrath is actively good and your opponent is not like dealing enough damage to you too fast or something like that. So there are decks where I would play it. Blue-white control is a thing you can do, but it's not my favorite thing. I feel like it doesn't like fit the cube that well. I want to play the person winning on board, not the person hoping that Day of Judgment bails them out. Here we have another classic monsters curve. We are doing the thing you're supposed to do, which is play a thing, play a thing, play a thing. And then your opponent at some point misses a step and is sad. Love that we're playing against a blue-black deck here, because it means they're unlikely to have like efficient artifact removal. They're going to have to deal with Simulacrum the old-fashioned way. The fact that we drew 2 burn spells is not very good, though, because if our opponent is a control deck, these burn spells are not going to do much. I'm going to jam at Sushi, you know. They're probably going to counter it. At least it wasn't exclude. But just like sitting here when we have nothing to do in our hand, otherwise it's not going to help us much. And good, now they have Hostage Takered, which means we get to use the cards in our hand for stuff. This looks like Molten Impact to me. Yeah, it's an interesting choice. So this adds a bonus point of damage for Fight with Fire later, which is cool if they play something huge. Fight with, like, Molten Impact is cheaper. So there's like a world where maybe we play Fight with Fire now to get the Molten Impact bonus later, but like, our deck doesn't have that many instants and sorceries. I think waiting is not going to help us that much on average. And Fight with Fire has the, both kills Shieldred, which is very dangerous. Kills other huge stuff, like Kefnet, for example, would be annoying. And then just like has the useful bonus mode, which, who knows, could be relevant this game. All right, now we've got this interesting question of, I could just jam Koglin Yarrow as a 7/7 trample haste. It almost certainly gets killed or countered. I can also attack with Simian Simulacrum, hope they kill it, and then it leaves them unable to deal with Koglin Yadaro the next turn, but given that I already have removal in hand, I'm pretty sure it's just like Koglin Yarrow, make them deal with it, make them have something. We've just been like trading card for card with our opponent. But, picking up some damage along the way. Commit's awesome. You love to see commit there because Kogla's coming back. And it implies they didn't have a better way to deal with Kogla than this commit. They don't have Heartless Act or something. At least they didn't at that point. Bloodbraid Elf is good, except for the very awkward part where it means I don't get to draw Koglin Yadaro next turn. I really do want to draw Koglin Yadaro next turn. Ugh. That's tricky. And I can't even like attack with Simulacrum and try to gain information because there's a chance they just like it's a big advantage to cast Bloodbraid Elf first here. Man, that's tough. That's tough. If we let up, like we just attack with Simulacrum this turn, they have like Memory Deluge or something they were able to cast. Then I'm potentially very embarrassed. I think we just cast the Elf. Sucks to lose the Koglin Yadaro, but just continuing to generate lots of pressure feels great. Okay, we have Bone Crusher Giant. We can stomp them or cast the free 4/3. Stomp triggers my Molten Impact. This gets kind of whacked hard by Languish, but I think it just puts them under more pressure since I can kill a blocker with the Fight with Fire in my hand. So pretty sure this is just Bone Daddy. And worst case scenario spell from them here would probably be like Shark Typhoon, which is still not so bad. Even if they kill Solemn, this is like dangerous out of the graveyard. Vendilion Click, okay. I assume they're going to replace my Fight with Fire with something else. But that's fine. Alright, we draw this, which is not great, but it does get the memory out of the graveyard, which is not completely useless. But it's going to choose not to put this in the graveyard, which makes sense, and yeah, I think it's just Scrap Gorger here. It's a little tricky, like how much do I want to play around Languish is a question. But Languish is like one card. There's also, I guess, Invasion of Fiora. I think we just Gorge here. I think like playing, if they have Invasion of Fiora next turn, playing this is unlikely to add damage in the long run. And there's a world where this is like kind of nice to have in play if I draw a Tali off the top of my deck, for example. What's awkward spot? This costs 2 life to deal with. This costs 4 life to deal with in some ways because it comes back. Okay. They did hit the Bone Crusher, so I'm pretty glad we were ready for stuff to go down. Yeah, that was strong. That was strong. I mean, I probably do have to just attack with Simeon. We're not going to get better attacks than we have now. And to at least have the 7th land. There's a question of whether we play the 7th land now for a possible Atali or hold it to discard. Like a Mercadia, I think we hold it to discard for now. There's also Tireless Tracker, and I think that's like that's what makes the difference for me. Right, end the turn. Plus, there's like keeping our opponent guessing, which is not so bad either. I would be very happy if our opponent chose to cast Memory now, so I'm not going to try and stop them from doing that. Nevertheless, I am supposed to exile it now because we might as well not give them the choice. Also really good to be making this Haughty Djinn smaller. Like, super cool. And drew Fabled Passage. This one I am willing to play because it, shuffling Koglin Yadaro and Fight with Fire back into my deck seems very good at this point. Let's start here, though. Our opponent knows we drew. We're just going to put the counters on this. Just forces them to lose the Haughty Djinn to it, which is good. Low land count has kept them in the game. It's also possible I have some bomb 6-drop that's about to kick my ass, but whatever. I'll play Fabled Passage, shuffle 2 good spells back into my deck. See if what crazy 6-drop they have. It's Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. That is a good card. That is going to make things harder for me. Lack of Glorybringer or Goldspan, I'm definitely feeling that right now. Just exile one of their other spells, I guess. Back this passage. I mean, if we draw Koglin Yadaro, we win. If we draw Fight with Fire, we don't quite win, but it's very good. First, tons of good spells to draw on our deck. See if we can find one. That's not it, Chief. That's not it. Alright, well, let's attack with Scrap Gorger. Notably, it's whenever it becomes tapped, not just when it attacks. So let's see if they are down to go to 1. Wouldn't be surprised if they were. There's also a world where I'm supposed to attack Teferi there. Damn, I was really hoping they would be more likely to block going to one that should have attacked Teferi. That was actually stupid. Alright, and now we're going to hold both of the lands, I think. Yeah, no, I should have attacked Teferi. I'm being very silly. This makes them dead to Lightning Strike and Lightning Bolt to hit them. But, like, not a lot else. And if they have, like, counter magic, which they also certainly do, this puts me in a tough spot. So, yeah, that could have been a game-losing mistake. And these tokens are going to kill me very quickly. Give me less time to draw something useful. Oh, crap. Alright, well, we might lose immediately to the tokens. What a punish, chat. What a punish. Viewers, that is. I mean, mostly we were punished by destroying a lot of lands and very few spells this game. I think it would have been hard to beat most decks with these combination of things we've drawn, but yeah, certainly painful. We could lose on the spot if they have, like, a draw 3. If they have a counter, this is likely to be impossible for us. Okay, these have Vigilance as well. Good to remember that. Let's see. So this means Cogliar no longer wins, even if they don't have a counter, because they have too much toughness to get through. And the Leon is going to shrink the Scrap Gorger. Still be a Tali, Lightning Bolt. Okay, fight with fire. Yeah, alright, let's try it. See if it works. I'm trying to think of what life gain effects exist. Black Sun's Twilight? That's not it. Black Sun's Twilight does not gain life. I mean, if this resolves, I'm going to win, so I think we just point it all at their head. There's not really any reason not to do that. Boink. Impact. Boop. Boop the Teferi. Boop the Time Warp. And have you got the counterspell opponent? Looks like they do. Or they're just sitting here contemplating their demise. Oh, C double. Oh my god. How does that work? Wow, okay. I'm trying to think if we had changed the targets, would we have actually been able to do that? Or could they have just... Okay, it's new target, so I'm pretty sure I was always dead to C double there. But that's a pretty funny way for that to end. 9 to C double. Yeah, again, if I attack the Teferi there, maybe I have an extra turn, but like... yeah, they at least don't get a bunch of extra cards. There's a chance they might have been able to not draw the C double there. So, yeah, definitely a potential punt. I mean, not a sure thing, right? Because we did, in some sense, we increased the number of lethal draws, but in another sense, we gave our opponent more chance to draw out of it. So it's a tough call. In the end, I regretted the choice. Doesn't mean it was wrong, but I lean toward thinking it was wrong. All right, on the play again. I like the amount of times we've been on the play here. It feels good. Safely Fabled Passage for a Mountain on turn 1, thin out the deck, and, like double green spell that I'm not going to be able to play on turn 2 if I do that. Elder Dragon War has been quite bad this league. That's the thing. Every time I've had this, it's like been killing my own stuff, or it's been like a very awkward, 4 mana for a 4/4 flying token is pretty bad. 4 mana 4/4 flyer, that would be bad in the Arena Cube, and then making it a token that can get bounced permanently to kill it is also bad. I think going back, I guess after this game we could swap this out, but I think I would probably rather play something else besides Elder Dragon War, given the chance. One thing we have not hit at all has been like a purely aggressive deck, which in theory our best matchup should be against like mono white. So I've been like pretty happy with the deck's performance considering that, awkwardness. It's got Cult Conscript on the battlefield. That's not one you see too often. So they might just be like a red-black aggro deck. Yeah, it looks like a red-black aggro deck, so maybe Elder Dragon War gets to do some stuff. However, really don't want Priest of Forgotten Gods killing off my Simian Simulacrum. I'm pretty sure we just stomp this one for now. Hope they play another small creature next turn, and then I get to Elder Dragon War everything away. It would be appropriate if this card that oh my god, this Elder Dragon War is going to be so good. Alright, so I was just like bad-mouthing Elder Dragon War, which of course means it's time for Elder Dragon War to have its hero moment. That's an example of like a well-designed cube. It's like, you're like, this card's so bad. Wait a minute, no, this card's incredible. Then in the nick of time. All right, Morbid Opportunist is kind of scary, actually. That card's pretty good. Incubation Druid, yeah, not that great at this point. We are... All right, the question is, do I discard all of the lands? I do want to cast Koglin Yadaro on Curve. It's always pretty tempting to get rid of all the stuff. I would really love to Bolt the Opportunist this turn. Have the most chances to draw one of my burn spells. If I don't draw lands for Koglin Yadaro, it means I'm drawing spells. I can even dump Solemn Simulacrum because it unearths. Like, how much do I like a 4-mana 4/3 when I already have Bone Crusher Giant? Yeah, maybe we just do like full wheel. Alright, in the end, I am fine with this outcome. Alright, played Sushi. They can kill it and draw a card, then I get 2 cards, which is nice. Sim in the Yard's not bad. Ugh. Alright, Yawgmoth Thran Physician. Thank God I killed that with Koglin Yadaro. That card's really, really good. Yeah, still love our position, though. Our opponent missing some land drops is very helpful. We definitely just fight the Yawgmoth. Right? There is an argument for just go like Trample Haste, hit them for 11 this turn when I have 2 4/4 flyers. And then they don't even get a card off the Opportunist, which they do if I fight. I'm just like, I have a Lightning Strike and a Simi in hand. Yeah, actually, just kill them. I almost never pick this mode in Koglin Yadaro because I love value so much, but in this case, the value of our opponent being incredibly dead seems worth. I also like the monkey tribal thing we've got going on here. Just need the other Kogla to complete the picture. Alright, our opponent loses immediately. That's cool. Alright, I think Elder Dragon War has earned its place in our deck with that round. That was pretty devastating. And now let's go into the trophy game. On the play again, we are just way too lucky, and this hand looks perfectly fine. Lovestruck Beast tends to have that effect on opening hands. Makes him look good. Again, makes Elder Dragon War look kind of awkward. But Incubation Druid's a fantastic follow-up. Have you got the burn spell, opponent? Oh, they don't have the bolt. They don't have the bolt. Okay, they do have the strangle. That's fine though. That's quite a bit worse than bolt for you there. And all right, love that 4th land. That feels good. All right, well, let's go to combat, see if our opponent has something they want to do to one of these cards. All right, that's pretty efficient. I'm definitely impressed. Now I get to do this, which is also pretty efficient. And Beast, even if it can't attack, it can still crew the Chariot. It's pretty useful. If they, yep, had something to do with the cats, they'd still be in trouble. Hydra's not a bad follow-up either. Let's just do this. Yeah, they appear to have nothing going on, which is real bad for them. Do I need to cast anything? Like, I kind of almost don't want to. They could have, like, burn down the house, for example. One thing I could... Yeah, I think I pass. There's, like, a lot of 4-mana counterspells that, like, draw a card in this cube. And just casting something into, like, a Kindred, Annihilator, or Dismiss would feel bad. If they had, like, wiped the board with a burn down the house that turn, we would have had the very fun play of Elder Dragon War, make a dragon token, copy dragon with Chariot. So sadly you didn't get to see that, but you did get to see a 7-1. And yeah, that's the Arena Cube. Just play cards that do stuff, have a good curve, know what the good cards are. 17 lands is kind of your friend, although it has weird numbers on some of the stuff. I guess there's like a little bonus segment at the end of the draft. Something that we could do is just open up 17 lands, and I could just like comment on what I think some of my favorite cards in the cube are, things that might be a little over or underrated. So a little bonus section you can turn off the video now if you don't want to see that, but let's just throw that in for a second. So here we have some card data from the cube. And I think game in hand win rate is like a weird one, because as you see, if we sort by game in hand win rate, you just have what always happens in cube every single time is just a bunch of red and white cards at the top, because red and white aggro decks are focused, they do things, it's harder to screw up with them, you're just going to beat a lot of people who are doing unfocused things. What I think is maybe more informative, so we could look at this in two ways. One thing we could do to find the cards that are like most impressive, we could look at improvement when drawn. I don't love that. Improvement when drawn tends to like show off, this is mostly ramp cards, as you can tell, just like cards that are, you know, cool in ramp decks, but like pretty bad when you don't draw them because it implies you haven't drawn your payoff. Maybe the better thing to do is sort by average last seen at. So this like sorts out the cards that are picked the most highly in the cube. Zoom in a little bit on this. So if you look at the cards that people are picking the most highly, I think this is a good way to look at like overrated, underrated stuff. So yeah, I mean, early on, this all makes sense. Shieldred, I don't think is... I mean, Fable of the Mirror Breaker should not be this far below Shieldred, but Shieldred's very good. I think if I had both of them to pick between, I would pick Fable before Shieldred. I'd probably pick Swords before Shieldred, but these cards are all good. They're all very, very good. They're like, you know, clear top 10. Oracle the Alpha is like a weird exception. People pick this card because it's very fun and like has a unique effect. It's obviously nowhere near as good as any of the other cards here. Same goes for Key to the Archive. This card is pretty good. It's not so good that it should be like 7th on this list. It does sometimes just get like shattered. But yeah, as far as Shieldred, Fable, Swords, Wandering Emperor, Bone Crusher, Lightning Bolt I like. Meat Hook Massacre I don't like nearly as much as it is picked here. Kind of the same problem as Wraths, where if you like need to do it, that implies that you're struggling a little bit. The Blood Artist effect is not as good in this cube because, I mean, A, you have to play a token deck to really take advantage. There's no like Cauldron Familiar that gives you just like easy free triggers. Like when you kill your stuff, you're killing stuff you sank cards into. The card is still good. I would still like happily main deck it in a black deck, I think, but doesn't strike me as like in the same league as the rest of the stuff. Time Warp feels slightly overrated to me. I think this card is just alright, the game hand win rate is higher than expected. I might be underrating Time Warp. I wouldn't put it this high on the list. Goldspan Dragon, Chandra, yep. Wormcoil Engine I think is overrated. It's powerful, it does a lot of stuff. It's like affordable, but there are a lot of things that deal with it. If you break it into 2/3/3 worms, it's not nearly as impressive. It gets exiled, it gets bounced, it gets countered, it gets cloned. Certainly powerful would put it well below like Sublime Epiphany or Counterspell, for example. Solemn Simulacrum is wildly overrated. Playing a 4-mana 2/2 is a real cost. Yes, you get to ramp, yes, you get to draw a card, but you got this like thing of like, does your opponent have to do anything about this? No, they really don't. Primeval Titan. Yeah, good, decent card in bad decks. I think like it's maybe below average for like the 6-drops. Like I think Frost Titan and Inferno Titan are both better, for example. But if you have like other stuff to ramp to, or you have some fancy lands, it can be fine. I think it's overrated. I agree with where Thoughtseize is. I agree with where Shieldred is. This card's very good. 2-mana ramp's amazing. Cold Steel Heart's great. Lily on the Veil is stupidly overrated. A -2 often doesn't do very much. The +1 is like pretty hard to make asymmetrical for you. Layer Wolf's amazing, Glorybringer's amazing, and then Lutri is the best card in the cube, as we discussed. There's very little data on Lutri because you rarely get to cast it, so there's just like no numbers on it. But I'm betting that in games where people cast Lutri, their win rate was extremely high. Card's great. All right, so those are like some quick thoughts. I'm trying to see if there's anything here that's like, yeah, maybe we go to the bottom of the Alsa, and see like of the cards that people never pick, what are the ones that seem like super underrated? That could be another good way to look at that. Very bottom, we've got Siren, Storm Tamer, Experimental Frenzy, and the Kami War, and Grim Player. All these are correctly rated. They're very bad. Lorehold Command. I mean, this card's very good. If you can support all the colors for this card, you should just play it. It is useful all the time in every matchup. Gigantha, people are probably picking a little too low. It is companionable. Hard to say. Yeah, mostly this looks right. I think Rapid Battery is like maybe underrated. It seems pretty good in like green red decks. Like I'd happily have played this in my monsters decks, for example. Just giving everything haste is like very solid. Go it's very specific. It's double red, double green. I get why it's so low, but is, as we saw from those games, very, very strong card. Anything else stand out? Okay, people are doing a pretty good job. Mythos of Illuna is amazing. Mythos of Illuna should be higher picked than this. Token that's a copy of any permanent is really good. You can ramp with it. The fight ability is like an amazing bonus that is not that hard to like splash for off a couple of lands. Miglo is another great red-green card, but kind of fits in one deck. What's the most underrated card here? People are doing a good job. Gray Merchant's in the cube. I didn't even realize that. I thought they had taken it out. Dang. Okay. Blood Tithe Harvester is fantastic, but 2 colors. I see how it ends up here. Precursor Golem should be lower on the list. Precursor Golem is one of the worst cards in the cube. You play it, and then immediately your opponent... I don't think I've ever seen the Golem survive from this card in any format, including Brothers' War. In Brothers' War, it was at least playable, because there wasn't so much removal running around, but you are just asking for just many different forms of punishment if you spend 5 mana on this. They should take that out of the cube. It's really bad. Bloodbraid Elf, I think, is pretty splashable, unlike Miglos and Kovin Yadaro. This card should probably be higher on the list. Yeah, you can see how low ranked all these red, green, gold cards are, by the way. This is part of the reason the red, green deck is like a very good like default archetype to go into. Like if it seems like those colors are kind of open, this is one of the archetypes I'm happiest drafting just because there's so many high quality cards that go around so late. Hard Evidence seems underrated. This card is so good. Like blue is a very powerful color, but one of the main problems the blue decks have is that it's easy to get run over by aggro. Hard Evidence just solves that problem at such a low cost, and also has like nice instant sorcery synergies with things. This card should be more highly picked, I think. Jacob Hauken is overrated. Alright. Yeah, people are correctly rating a lot of stuff. I'm actually like not hating a lot of these placements here. Yeah, no. A lot of my favorite cards are more like slightly underrated than like super underrated, I guess. Electrolyze is pretty splashable. Okay, Briarbridge Tracker should not be this low. This card's great. Just like, you cannot cast this card and feel bad about it. It's a 4/3 for 3. It attacks and it blocks, and you get value if they kill it. This card's very, very good. I consider it a higher quality card than Primeval Titan, for example. A lot of people just don't play the green decks that attack often enough, but in green decks that attack, Briarbridge is awesome, and you should consider playing green cards that attack, perhaps with red cards that attack. Cryomite Ditto, super impressive. Green does not get a lot of removal. This is very good green removal, and just like wins a lot of games out of nowhere. Urborg Scavengers is just like a 3/3 that sometimes has abilities and also messes with your opponent's graveyard and then becomes a 4/4 as soon as it attacks. Yeah, this card's much better than this ranking. This is underrating Urborg Scavengers considerably. And then, oh, Nightclub Bouncer. This is a great example of a blue card that's really underrated. In fact, let's look at blue. Last stop on the tour, we're just going to look at blue cards in the cube. Also rankings. We talked about Hard Evidence being very underrated, Mythos being underrated. I think Repeal is kind of underrated. There are a lot of tokens in this cube. Bouncer's insane. This card is... yeah, it just forces your opponent to spend so much mana, and the flash is so good, and it just deals with such a wide array of threats. It's also very good at dealing with stuff blue can't deal with easily. Like, you can bounce an enchantment. You can bounce an Urabrask's Forge, which is a card that might otherwise beat a blue deck by itself. It just like covers so many bases. It's so strong. The only problem with it is that there are a lot of good 4-mana blue cards, like C Double. But it's excellent. C Double underrated. Thassa's Intervention is super underrated. This is a split card counterspell draw 2. This is basically Archmage's Charm. It's like an Archmage's Charm that is easier to cast in a lot of ways. It's not, obviously not exactly that good, but it's very good. And then, yeah, Future Spell Thief. Game in Hand Winter, I think, is artificially low because I don't think people realize how widely you can use this card. I've seen, like, several opponents between my games and other people's games just, like, cast this as a 3/2 flash at the end of the turn. When their opponent already cast a spell that turn. They just, like, didn't realize what it did. It's great. Mold is probably a little overrated. If you're blinking it, it's fine, I guess. So I should account for that. But yeah, Futurist, yeah. Now we're getting into like the good blue cards that people realize are pretty good. Agent of Rafine. This is still underrating Agent of Rafine. Agent of Rafine is much better than this. Cyber Siphoner is still probably a little underrated. This card allows for just a lot of flexibility. Getting multiple copies of the same effect in a game in Cube is really fun. And yeah, Vendelian Click is wildly overrated by comparison. This body is just not that impressive for the cost. Knowing what's in your opponent's hand is nice, but Nightclub Bouncer is much better than this card, for example, I think. Okay, then the good blue cards people seem to know are good. That was blue in a nutshell. I may make another Cube video at some point before or after the Open. I really do like this format, as I've been saying. Yeah, just finally a well-designed Cube. I finally feel like basically all the cards in the Cube are good. It used to be there were a few where I'm like, no deck should ever play this. This is horrible. What is this doing here? And I really only feel that way about a couple of the cards in the Cube at this point. So that's like, they're making steady progress. Once you add a couple more sets to Arena, you can take Precursor Golem out, put in the fetch lands. We're going to have ourselves a perfect drafting experience. It's going to be great. And yeah, don't forget to check out my stream, twitch.tv/AaronGertler, for more Cube action, including this weekend's Arena Open. I will be playing on day 1 until I qualify for day 2, and then I will be playing day 2, and we are going to stream all of that. Disaster, barring Disaster, we'll be doing that. So do tune in for that. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see when new videos are being posted. And yeah, catch you later.